Kia ora, it's Whānau, another video here for you today showing you how to make an inventory system in Python Arcade. Let's take a look at where we're going to end up. Here is where we're going to end up. And so I'll just run this quickly. And as you can see, we have a... Ooh, interesting. Come back. We have a main window here, not a lot going on, but I imagine this is where you put your game. Say for example, you've got your player in here and your map and your enemies and everything in your main window and you're jumping around and doing whatever, and I'm imagining these elements here living on a heads-up display camera. So you've got your heads-up display camera, you've got these two on here. This is a sprite, and as you can see it has this lovely hover state, and this here is just a texture, just a picture put on there. This is a skill, at least in my game. I'm imagining that this is a skill, and this changes some part of the gameplay. How does it change the gameplay? I don't know. That's up to you. So if I click into my inventory, you can see here, I have a couple of different things on the screen here. I've got a big picture here to show the skill that has been selected. I've got a skill effect area here, and I've got some text here. This text here is just to show you that we can have filler text that you can scroll through with these texture elements. And you can see down here, I have a few different skills, and as I hover over them, they swap to this lovely hover state. And if I click them, I've got this really rough and ready click state. I have the name of the skill turn up. I have some description here of that skill turn up, and I've got its effect down here. And you can swap between these, and you know, these are currently don't actually do anything other than show that they are selectable. And I have this little cross up in this corner to return back to our screen. And you'll see when we're back in our game, that information about what selected skill we have has been passed back to our other window. That's quite important. And we can return back to the inventory screen and have that selection be persistent. And that's important too. So I could select a different skill, go back to my game, and you can see that that selection has transferred through. Okay, couple of things that I have already done. I have already gotten that filler text in, as you can see here. A lot of Kiwi filler text. I just put that in there because I think it's hilarious, and you can look at that in your own time. I've also made the skill class. If you were coding this up, you might want to use a data class for this. This is something, that's a school bell. That is something that a data class is perfect for. I chose not to at this point. I didn't want to go through and explain what data classes were, but you could easily have done that. So a skill is just an empty class. It's not inheriting from anything. So it's a base class. It has a name, it has a description, an effect, and a cost. Now, I'm just passing those properties into the class so that they're encapsulated within that class. They are saved within that class object. And I've also got these three things here, which are the file names. I already have these 1, 2, 3 PNGs saved in my repository so that I can access those three separate pictures. When I swap to the hover state, when I swap to the selected state, I'm not editing or putting a filter on that image. I'm literally swapping out to a new image. I also have the images of the cross and the brown cross, the white cross, the brown sword, and the white sword. Those are available on Kenny. The Kenny website has a whole lot of fantastic assets you can use. Feel free to use your own. You can use whatever you would like for those. And as you can see, I've made a list of skills here, and I've made these skill objects. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 skill objects. Okay. Like always in Arcade, I have I've just set up my main game and I've set run. Okay, the thing we actually want here, and the thing that this video is really about, is these three objects. One is a window and two are views. I should also mention right at the top, I've already imported Arcade itself. I've imported arcade.gui and these few things here from arcade.gui and arcade.gui.widgets. I probably shouldn't actually import the whole thing if I'm just importing these things. We'll fix that up later. Okay, let's code up these three classes. Now, the tricky part about this is that I want to pass what selected skill I have from my inventory view back to my game view. And I want that state to persist when I return to my inventory view, and then when I return back to my game view as well. I want that state to stay the same. So what I need to do is that bit of state, which is the selected skill, needs to live outside of those views. It can't live inside. It can't live inside the inventory view or the game view itself, because the other view can't access it. If I change what the selected skill is in the inventory view, I can't access that inside the game view. So that bit of state needs to live up in the arcade window. Let's do the window first. Window is nice and simple. First thing I need to do is I need to define its init function. Oops, and I forgot that it filler text all of that for us, so let's just go self, and let's say, let's call the superclass super.init, and we're going to make this window, no, it can stay like that. It has sensible defaults in it already, and so it can stay there like that. I'm going to give the window a selected skill property attribute. Self.selected skill. And we're going to set that to skills 0. Don't forget skills. I've defined skills as a list here in the global scope. Previously, I'd actually done that outside of the... I'd actually done that in a separate file previously and brought it in, but I thought I'd keep everything to one file for this video. Cool. Cool. Now I need to make the views. Those views are going to live as properties within the game window. You'll see why soon. So I need to say self.game view is going to equal a game view. Self.inventory view. Inventory, oops, is going to equal an inventory view. Cool. Just going to stick one of those in there for consistency. Wonderful. We've made these two views. I now have to show one. So I need to say self.showView. And that is self.gameView because I want the game view first. If you had a start menu, you would show that one to start with. And we're also going to run self.set, no, not self, arcade.set background color, and we're going to set it to sky blue. Wonderful. And we'll get my IntelliSense out of the way so you can see that line of code. Cool. The game view is probably the next easiest thing to tackle. Let me just find my previous code that I had written up for that. Okay, so let's define its init. And in fact, let's just say for a moment, I just want to put something on the screen. Let's just put something on the screen and show that it is working. If I set something in here like arcade.set background color, arcade.color. Whoa, I want you to be able to see my code. Arcade.color. Oh, cornflower blue. Crimson glory. I'm just going to make my text a little bit smaller so you can see it. Hopefully that means you can still see all of the code and it's not too fuzzy. And I'll just comment this out and I will show you that my game is being made. It is making a game view and it is showing that game view. Let's give it a shot. Oh, it is not currently. What error are we getting? Game view has no attribute window. That's interesting. Perhaps this is required if I don't do anything. Okay, a little bit of debugging here. Self.gameView is a game view. I haven't, you know what I haven't done? I haven't called the superclass. I haven't initialized the superclass, so it doesn't think it's a window yet, so it's not working. There we go. And if I bring back arcade.set background, I'll just, you know what, I'll just copy this in here for a moment, just to show you that it's working and this is actually going. Oh, that's fun. We're not actually drawing yet, are we? That's okay. Let's undo that for a moment. Whoa, redo that, sorry. Redo that and bring that one back in here. Cool. Righto. Okay, moving on to the next part. What we want to do is we want to get that icon up on the screen. We want to get that not the cross button, the inventory button there. And in order to do that, we need a couple of things. So it's assumed that you're going to have a game camera and that you're going to have a heads-up display camera. So let's make those now. Now, in order to have clickable elements and in order to have things like arcade buttons, what we need is we need a manager. A UI manager, in fact. Not like that, like this. Cool, and now we need to enable it. Great, now that manager is enabled. Fantastic. We need to load in those textures I was talking about. For me, they're in a PNG folder. Put all my images in the same folder, and we just need to pull them out and use them. So let's get that sword. That's going to be, we need to load that in as a texture. As I said, those are available up in Kenny. If you find them, load them down, and put them in the same folder, this code will work, or you can use your own images for this. And we need to do the same thing, but with hover. And that is the silver sword. Wonderful. Great. Now we're going to make a button. And this is just a UI texture button. It's going to live at 750. And these are just numbers that I've played around with. You might have width and height. You might say width minus 50, height minus 50. Okay, but we need to set its texture. And its texture, of course, is going to be sword. And its hover, texture hovered, is going to be sword hover. Excellent. We now need to add that to the manager. Cool. Let's check it out. We're not drawing anything yet. Why not? We need the onDraw function. Self.clear, and we're going to say self.hudcamera.use, and we're going to put the manager on it. So self.manager.draw. Cool. That might be better. Yay! We now have a button which has a hover state on it. This button isn't doing anything yet, so we need to actually link up what do we want to have happen when we click the button, and how do we tell Python Arcade what do you want to do when that button is clicked. What we need to do is we need to pass a function to the button that says, hey, UI manager, whenever this button is clicked, and it knows what it means when that button is clicked, please run this function. So what we do is we're going to make a new function. We're going to say define inventory button clicked. And this is actually going to be a UI event, and one of the fishhooks that you'll come into is that this requires an event. The manager is automatically going to pass an event object to this function. So we're going to call this event. And now we can, let's just print event, see what is in that thing. So we can say up here, self.inventory button dot on click equals, let me double check this is actually how you do this. Yes, self.inventory button clicked. Now, this is a function here, but notice how I don't have double brackets around it because I don't want to invoke the function right now. when we hit to this line of code, line 100, I don't want to invoke that function right now. I want to invoke it sometime later. And when we do this, it's called a callback. I want to call this function whenever that button is clicked. So just have it waiting there in memory, ready to be run when the button's clicked, please. So now you should be able to see when I click the button, I should have this event down the bottom. I should have this event object printed out. And when we print it out, it looks like this, a UI on-click event, and it gives you the source, and it says, okay, this GUI texture button at this memory address at this pixel location triggered this event. Events are funny objects. They have lots of stuff inside them. It's very hard to see inside them unless you know what you're looking for. One way to do that is to use the debugger. Should we do that now? You know what? Let's do it now. How do we run the debugger? We come up here. We say debug Python file. We're going to run and debug that Python file. I've put a little breakpoint here. This means, whoa, slow down, slow down. This means that when we hit this line of code, everything's going to stop. It's going to show me everything in the code that I want to look at. So there we go. I clicked it. We hit that line of code. We've stopped. We can now see this event object. And you can see in this event object, it's got an X and a Y. It's got a source. And this source is going to be very useful later on when we're dealing with picking those skills, selecting those skills. But for now, you can take a look in there, see what else it's got in there. So it's got a position, it's got a source, and the source is that button. Okay, cool. Let's stop this for a moment. Let's get out of debug mode. Right. Out of debug mode, get rid of that breakpoint. Whenever you're really, really stuck, you want to take a look at what you're actually dealing with. I thoroughly recommend learning how to use the debugger properly. Okay, right. Rather than actually printing that event, though, I don't want to print the event. I want to swap views. So I want to say self.window.showView. So, and we're going to need to put something in here, but what is it? Views are also a funny thing in Python Arcade. Views have attached to them the window that they're registered to. That is very, very helpful when we want to do something like this, and I want to swap between views. So I can say, so the window that it's attached to, of course, is this class here. This class just so happens to have an inventory view attached to it. So we can say self.window.showView, and what view do we want to show? Inventory view? No, that's going to make a new inventory view. That's not what we want. We want to show the particular inventory view that we made up here. And what did we call it? Self.inventory view. Okay, that's great, but we're not writing code here in the window class. We're out of that scope. And so we can access it the exact same way that we accessed this showView function, which is self.window.inventory view. It's not coming up in IntelliSense. Don't worry about that. Cool. So now we should be able to run this Python file, not debug it. Click it, and everything's crashed. Okay, this is different. Why? Well, currently our inventory view isn't actually drawing anything, so the Python Arcade isn't drawing a new background even over the top of our inventory, our little button. So as you notice, it stayed on that hover state, which tells me that it is working. It stayed on that hover state. It is working. It's just not drawing anything new yet. So, should we get that to happen? Okay, what does this inventory need to do? Well, first we need to define its init. And there is a lot to do in this inventory view. Here we go. First we need to define its init. And then we need to create a manager for this view. Exactly like we did before. And self.manager.enable. No, do we want to do that? What's going to go wrong here? Okay, what's going to go wrong is that we're now going to have two different managers enabled. We never want that to happen. We only ever want to have the manager enabled that is attached to the view that is currently visible. Currently, when we initialize our game view here, we're going to make a new GUI manager and enable it, and here we're going to make another UI manager and enable it here. So when we get to this third line of code, we've got two managers enabled. We never want that. Even though not everything on that manager is going to be drawn, they're still going to be clickable, they're still going to interrupt your mouse events and things for the game for your other game elements. So what we actually want to do is we want to use these two lovely functions. Oh, sorry, I'll bring us back up here, which is on show view. So only when this view is actually shown do we want to enable this manager. And guess what? On hide view does the same thing, and we want to disable the manager whenever this view is hidden. Let's copy these two lines. Let's put them in the game view as well so that it doesn't enable that manager until we want it to. Cool. Delete self.manager.enable from its init function. We don't want to enable that manager when it's initialized. We want to enable it when the view is shown. Cool. We have a manager in our inventory class. We should also have let's also have an onDraw function. So let's define onDraw, and we should be able to say here, we should be able to say, like we have down here, self.clear. And we don't have anything to draw at the moment, so the background is going to be drawn. So let's run that. Oh, what have we done? Inventory view has no attribute window. I've done the same mistake again. Same mistake. I haven't run the init function of the superclass. So I haven't actually made it a view yet. Super dot init. Yay. Oh, much better. Hey, our buttons disappeared. Okay, buttons disappeared. I can't get back. Oh, what do we do? Well, let's add a way to get back. And just like we've done with the sword, we should be able to do that with a little cross now. So let's tell you what. Let's grab all of this code. Let's stick it in here. Let's change these from swords to cross. You know what? Oops. let's change that one. And I hold Alt, and I can do this lovely multi-cursor thing. And this is not called cursor cross. I just need to say icon cross is what this is called. Now, inventory button clicked is not correct. And it's also called self.cross button is going to be UI texture button, self.cross button on click is going to be cross button clicked. And we're going to add the cross button to this. Fantastic. We now need to make that. Call back. What do we want to have happen when this button is clicked? So define cross button clicked, and it's going to belong in self, and it's going to have an event attached to it, and we want to say self.window.showView. And just like before, self.window.gameView. Oops, it's not a function, it's just a plain old property. Wonderful. I've got the wrong file names. It should be brown and beige. Of course, you will have your own file names there. Yay! Cool. Where's our cross? We've forgotten to draw it on the screen. There it is. And again, it has a hover state. And when we click it, we get back to our other view. Fantastic. Fantastic. Cool. But we're not actually doing anything with our inventory yet. We can open our inventory, we can close our inventory and get back to our game view, but we can't actually do anything meaningful with our inventory yet. I think that is plenty for one video. Let's just recap what we've done. We have set up our imports. We have talked about everything in our starter code and what it does. We've made our game window. We've talked about where the state needs to live. And the state, of course, is this here. We've made an inventory view. We've made a button on there with a texture and a hover texture and a on-clicked callback. And we've written that. We've enabled and disabled our UI managers. We have done pretty much the exact same thing in the game view so that we're now able to swap in between these two views. Wonderful. I think that is enough for now. I'm going to do one last scroll through my code so that you can pause it and stop it at any point. We're just starting and we're already hitting almost 100 lines, not including all of this. Okay, so there are my imports. And that's it. In the next video, we're going to actually do something with the skills, and we're going to load them up into icons, and we're going to change that state in the inventory and pass it back along to the game view. We'll see you there.